Hello and welcome to the Pete Braley Show. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're new to the program, on this show we try to shine the spotlight on people that have contributed to making life better here in the greater New Bedford and southeastern Massachusetts area. For many years she was a reporter at the Standard Times covering education in our area for a while. I got to know her when she was on my radio show every Tuesday morning at 8:35 to talk about the news. Please welcome Sue Pawlak Seaman. Welcome.
Hi, Pete. Great to see you.
It was Tuesday at 8:35, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Why do you say, oh, yeah?
I remember, but it was fun. I actually enjoyed doing that.
I got to tell you, you were one of my favorite reporters.
Oh, thank you.
And the reason, one of the main reasons was you're so easy to talk to. And I knew you were coming to the table with ammunition. We could basically talk about anything in the news.
Yeah,
right?
I'm a news junkie, definitely.
Yeah. Was it 45 years at the paper?
45 years full-time. And if you count my part-time stuff when I was in college and all, 50 years.
Wow. I read that you started writing in high school?
Yes, back in the day when the Standard Times was like multiple editions and all and had, a gazillion reporters, they decided that every high school should have a high school columnist so that they could, write what was going on in their schools. And there were probably, 20, 30 different high schools that were represented, and it was always in the Sunday paper.
Okay.
And it wasn't, it was probably of, interest only to the people in the high school that you were at.
Sure.
If then.
Or your parents.
I think my parents were like, okay. We're proud of you, but.
Let's go back. Your parent, now this was, what, Lakeville, Middleboro? Where did you grow up?
I grew up, I was born in Middleboro. We lived there till I was in 4th grade, and then we moved to Lakeville.
Okay.
And so I went to Assawamsett School, and then I went to Apponequet. At the time, Apponequet was grade 7 through 12. There was no middle school.
Oh, okay.
So, and it was also, an experience for me because in Middleboro, I literally lived right across the street from the school I went to on the west side of town.
What about Apponequet?
At Apponequet, it was a 7.5-mile bus ride.
Oh, okay.
And it was, just a whole different ball game and all, everything from, I'd walk home to lunch at the other school to, you'd eat in the cafeteria and whatever, but it
I
was...
remember walking home for lunch. One of the schools, I went to the Gyra Swift School.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I lived on Acushnet Avenue, so I'd go home for lunch. That was so weird compared to how things are nowadays.
Oh, yeah. No, it's very different.
What did you want to be when you grew up? I read something that you wanted to be a lawyer?
Yes, I did want to be a lawyer. I was always kind of fascinated by law, and I knew I didn't want to, even though I'm love reading about things medical, and I've kind of gotten an education of certain things along the way and all. But there was something about the law that fascinated me, so I said, well, that'll be good. So when I graduated from high school and I went to Stonehill College in Easton, I majored in English and sort of semi-minored in history and was intending to go to law school.
What happened?
Well, I started working part-time, semester breaks, summers, at the Standard Times Middleboro Bureau. Okay. Because I'd been...
They had an actual office, right?
Oh, they absolutely. They had bureau offices in Middleboro, Wareham, all over the place, Fall River. So it was, a very, very different world then. And they apparently liked my silly little high school column enough that they just offered me this part-time job to work in the bureau and write obituaries and answer phones and stuff. And I'm sure, I didn't have any other plans that summer. And so I did that all through college, and along the way just fell in love with journalism.
Wow.
And
what could you sum it up? What was it about? Because I'll get into this with you later, but it kind of has a bad rap nowadays. And,
it's a whole different world.
How you feel about that. But what was it about journalism that really attracted you?
Well, the funny part was I was pretty shy when I was a kid and all, but it kind of gave me a license to be nosy and ask questions.
Oh, right.
And I
just love to tell stories.
Yeah.
Because to me, everybody has a story. And when I say that, they go, oh, I don't know. Not me.
Oh, yeah.
No, you have a story too.
Everybody, I totally agree with you on that. And so, it was just a thing where after a while, my persona who I was became more like when I was being a reporter, and asking questions, and it was kind of a confidence builder and stuff too. And as I said, I loved the reporting part. I always loved writing. From the time I was a little kid, I was writing these goofy stories that my mother saved, and all that stuff, and stuck them up on the refrigerator and all of that. But so it's just, I think it was just that innate curiosity.
Am I saying this right? Fran Wixton? Was she a mentor?
Yes, Fran was, there were 2 reporters in the Middleboro Bureau. There was a bureau chief, and then there was Fran. And I was the fill-in clerk in there. And Fran was great. She was involved, very much a feminist, and involved in establishing, and this is like circa 1972, 73, the First Now chapter, the National Organization of Women, which at that time was considered kind of like, really crazy liberal women, and in Middleboro. And she just was, she was a character. She had this red hair that she kind of parted on the side and combed over. She constantly smoked cigarettes. She, swore like a trooper, and you knew wherever she stood with anybody, but she was wonderful. And she really taught me so very much about journalism. And the irony, and the sad irony, is the way that I got my full-time job with the Standard Times was I continued working part-time for a year after graduating from college in '74, because it was a terrible year to graduate. There was just no jobs anyplace. Right. So I took the part-time job, and Fran had gone home to take a nap before covering a selectmen's meeting that night, and sadly she never woke up.
Oh, really?
Massive heart attack.
Oh.
And so the next day I got a call from the bosses in New Bedford and said, would you be interested in taking this job? And
wow.
I said, yeah, and all. And I had been gradually doing a little bit of writing in addition to the clerk thing, when I volunteered to cover playground costume contests and, that sort of stuff. And also I was like, yeah. It's funny because I was going through some stuff at home, and I found a little log that had my first paycheck amount.
Oh, really?
Full time. And
yes.
So that would have been February 1975, $90 a week.
I was going to say, I remember making like $98, and I thought, this is so cool.
Yeah, $90 a week, which from minimum wage, which I don't even remember what it was at that time, but it was definitely minimum.
Right.
And so it seemed like a big deal. It wasn't until years later that, as hard as we worked in the Bureau, because we had to cover everything there, whereas they had specialists in New Bedford in the newsroom, that the newsroom reporters made about $60 more a week than the Bureau reporters. So there was a real discrepancy there. So
tell me about those old newsrooms. You mentioned smoke-filled. The language was kind of rough at those, but I watched a movie once. It was about the whole Catholic priest situation and how the Boston Globe broke that story.
Spotlight, yeah.
Right. And it was a full newsroom, and we don't see that anymore. We have small staffs. I believe the Standard Times even downsized.
There is no newsroom anymore, okay. From what I understand from all my friends. There is an office. I believe it's in the basement of the DeMello building, if somebody needs a space there. But everybody works remotely. Yeah. And, back in the day, I went into the Standard Times newsroom. I got promoted into there in 1979. Okay. And there it was filled. It was at 555 Pleasant Street back then, and from the third floor, from window to window, was filled with reporters. There was a separate Sunday department. There was a separate living department, they called it. A separate copy desk. Separate, then all the newsroom reporters.
There's the city editor, right?
City editor, assistant city editor, managing editor, editor. There was just everything. And there were reporters for every beat. There was a City Hall reporter. There was an education reporter.
Right.
There was after a while, like an environmental reporter. There were investigative reporters. There were, columnists. Marjorie Egan was one of the first columnists. Of course, she went on to great success with Jim Brody and at the Boston Herald. And
I know it's fun to reminisce with. I've had Jim Phillips on the show. I talked to Brian Gomes once around election time, and he told stories about, city council meetings. Then you go out for a beer, and reporters are there, and then there was always the off the record, and whether or not certain reporters respected that or not. How do you feel nowadays when you hear claims of fake news?
I have said to so many people, if I never hear those two words ever again, I would be very, very happy. It really bothers me because I was talking to somebody about this the other day, and we used to, not to say we never made a mistake.
Right.
Accuracy was, fair, balanced, when those words were really good words still. That's what we really, went for, and to the point where if you did a story, they, for a number of years, sent out these accuracy questionnaires to people that we interviewed, asking them if we
Did we get it right?
Did we get it right?
Nice.
Did we quote them directly? Was the reporter polite to you? Was, all sorts of things and all, and any other comments and all. And, thankfully, I don't remember getting a bad one. But there was very serious business. I mean, you did not, and if you did make a mistake, I did one or two doozies. My favorite one was when I impeached Richard Nixon. I was writing a story, and
the power you have.
And I was like, I guess it was, I don't know, wishful thinking. He left of his own accord, of course. But it was, I lost sleep over that for nights.
Do you feel that some of the skepticism about journalism, though, that there is some meaning behind that? I mean, there are some journalists who you kind of question their ethics or the way they do business.
Yeah,
would you agree?
I would. The thing is, the profession now is nothing like what it used to be, and I think a lot of that lies with the fact of social media. Now, I'm a big social media fan. I'm on Facebook a lot. I pop in and out of Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it now. And I'm always, on my phone looking for stuff and
You're still a reporter, even though you're not a reporter, right?
Yeah, I always, say my journalist genes are still there and full. They're not going to go away.
We were talking before the show started about how I asked you if when a big story hits, in my case, the first time there was a blizzard and I wasn't working, I was at home, I just felt like I should be there.
Yeah.
I felt like, do you have that happen to you? You feel you should be part of the story?
I still do. I feel like...
not part of the story, but working on the story.
When I read a story, like I have subscriptions to, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, and I still see typos in there every so often, because the latter years of my career, I was a night editor.
Oh, okay.
And so, and I was always a good speller and all those good things. And it drives me nuts that, how can papers that big and that important have, the typos, just misspellings totally and all. And I've been known to write little emails to people and say, hey.
Oh, nice.
Mostly they say thank you, though.
I have a friend of mine in Florida, former radio guy, and whenever I still post a column on Sunday mornings, which I need to
which I read faithfully.
I need to thank you, by the way, for part of that. But first, my friend in Florida, he will send me a Facebook message saying, hey, you got a typo in line 3. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. What I wanted to say was, when I got let go from the radio station, I think the Standard Times called me within 3 days. And they said, would you still like to have a voice in the community?
Yeah.
And I said, sure. And Jonathan Comey mentioned a Sunday column. And I had spent 30 some odd years speaking. Mm-hmm. And now I was going to write. And I told him, I said, my grammar, I don't know. Because you said you're into spelling and punctuation.
Yeah.
And because you write different for the radio.
Yeah. Of course, yeah.
I'm the only one that'll see the script, and
Yep.
I don't usually use commas. It's ... or whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
But when I started out, you were so helpful.
Oh, thank you.
And, we knew each other through the radio casually, but then I got to know you. You invited me to your house a few times. And when did you get into start writing your column?
I figured that out after I got laid off, and I actually started writing a version of the column for 25 years prior to that. And at first it was an education column where I would do, it was called Class Acts, and it would be little tidbits from all the schools and everything. And then gradually it kind of morphed into, with the, blessing of my editor, Ken Harnett, of more of a, regular type column and everything. Right. Sometimes more issue oriented, sometimes more political. And then eventually it morphed again into more of a human interest thing, and just kind of like whatever was on my mind. Right. there used to be I think it was Don Harrington, who was a sports editor for years at the Standard Times way back. And he might have stolen it from one of the Boston reporters, but thoughts while shaving. Well, mine wasn't exactly while shaving, but it was kind of like just what kind of popped into my brain. Something happened, during that week and all. And I guess I kind of always saw everything as a column. And some weird thing would happen to me personally, or I'd see somebody, like one time a woman's purse got ripped off from the shopping carriage in Shaw's, and something like that. And as I said, for a while it was political, but I quickly got away from that because the climate changed, and it just wasn't worth it.
Have to talk about your husband, Hank. I assume you met at work.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yes, we did. He was actually one of the last people that I met there, because
really,
even casually, because he worked nights, and I worked in the Middleboro Bureau and all.
Oh, okay.
So
and he was in sports or a photographer?
No, he was a photographer. For 30 years he was the night photographer. That's when they had 5 photographers. Now I believe there's just Peter. Yeah. And who is his artistic side. It reminds me very much of the things that Hank did. And
we're talking about Hank Seaman, of course, who went on to be a photojournalist. Do I have that right?
Yes, he was a photographer for 30 years, and then our boss Ken said, you should be a columnist. And Hank's like, holy crap. And he was really kind of reluctant at first, but he was one of those people. He used to scribble stuff down, and just he was always writing something, even though he wasn't a professional writer. Back in the day when Jim Ragsdale, the former editor, had Drug Watch, which the photographers would have to go into court, and at this point Hank was on a different shift, so he was sometimes had a daytime shift, and they'd have to sit there and wait. Anybody that was arrested for drugs, they did like this rogues gallery and everything, and it was very, very, very controversial and all, but it was also very boring for the photographers to sit there just have to wait. And after a while, the defendants caught on, and their lawyers caught on, so they'd come in hoodies, and they'd do these things, like over their heads and stuff, and I mean, it got to be like, kind of a comedy thing. So Hank would sit there, and he would write stuff while he was just waiting to take a picture. And he wrote one thing that was, I've never forgotten it. Death on Deadline was one of his.
Okay.
But he was always doing something like that. He was just basically a very creative guy. I mean, he, did, photography. He painted, he drew, he, did stamps for a while, which was probably my least favorite hobby of his, I confess.
And didn't he have, I remember your house, and aren't there like plenty of albums? Like he was really into music?
Oh, he saved, he did scrapbooks. I mean, he had stuff going back to his Little League days, and I still have those. And he just was very much a collector sort of person and all. And of course, he was big into baseball when he was a kid, because there was 7.5 years difference between us. So he was at the Ted Williams camp in Lakeville as a counselor for a couple of years when he was 16 and 17.
Oh, wow.
So I was about 10 years old at the time. Needless to say, our paths did not cross until many years down the road. But he was a really good baseball player too. I mean, Hank was just one of those people.
Yeah.
Whatever he did,
Well-rounded.
And if I have a talent, it's probably writing. That's it. That's my thing.
Hank got sick. He had a stroke, you said, almost 20 years ago?
Well, it was actually in 2004 that he,
Okay.
it was Labor Day weekend, and thought he'd pulled a muscle or something because but he was just having some chest pain. So I, brought him to the ER, and all the tests originally came back fine.
Wow.
So, but his doctor at the time, Mike Egan, who was his longtime doctor, said, you know what, I'm just going to keep you overnight and have them do a stress test here.
Mm-hmm.
So it was scheduled for like 8 o'clock the next morning, and I got a phone call, and it was Mike Egan, and it was like 10 past 8, and he said, I think Hank had a stroke. And I was just like, and your whole world changes.
Right.
I mean, it's
Yeah, when I got that, I was like, whoa, this is serious.
Yeah, and so he was in ICU for the first week, and his was affected the left side, mobility. He lost the vision in both eyes. At first, he had some speech issues, but he said, if he could have exercised the rest of his body like he exercised his mouth, he would have gotten everything back, because he just started talking.
And you were so nice when you reached out to me after my stroke. I don't know if that was your idea or Hank's idea, but it was so nice to meet someone that could understand what I was dealing with.
Well, I think that it was really both our ideas, because early on, both he and I decided that we wanted to share this in hopes that it would help other people.
And you found it, did I read somewhere that you found it helpful to write about it?
Oh, yeah.
Did you doubt leading up to that, should I do this?
No, I never really did. I had done some stuff before that, just with me personally, before Hank had a stroke. I had skin cancer in 2000, and I had to have Mohs surgery on the top of my nose from sunburns that I got as a kid.
Yep.
And so I wrote about that whole thing, and just to tell people, don't ignore it. This is what you do. This is what Mohs surgery is, and all of that. And then a few years after that, when I had my first colonoscopy, and they always get such, as I joked, a bum rap.
Yes.
I decided I would, share that experience, because it really, was, and I got a lot of comments on both of those, and very, honored and proud to say that I won New England Cancer Society awards for each one of them, and all. So it was, I feel good about sharing.
Yeah. I remember one time I wrote in my Sunday column, I think I wrote that I was thinking of not writing about my health anymore, because I felt it was getting boring, getting repetitive. And there was a lady who sent me an email. She said, please don't stop, because so many people can relate to it.
Absolutely. And people, it's different than say a heart attack or something, because if you have a heart attack and say you have to have heart surgery and everything, it's not visible. With strokes, there are visible deficits. There can be speech impediments. There can be, like movement, mobility issues, and all of that. You look different.
Yes.
And people don't know what to do with people who look different.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
So true. You lost Hank in 2020.
Yeah. October
Was it
30th.
COVID related?
No, he never had COVID. He was tested a gazillion times and all, and knock on wood, I've never had it either. But I almost lost him the beginning of that year. He had diabetes on both sides of his family, and eventually, that took its toll on liver and kidneys and all. And things just started. He did very well for probably the first 16 or so years after the stroke. Then gallbladder issue, which for most people is like day surgery nowadays. His was surgery, 5 days in the hospital, 2 weeks in the nursing home, to rehab to recover and all that. So it was kind of like every time something happened, it would be one step forward, but two steps back.
2 steps back, right. You have a yearly Standard Times reunion at your house. Was that your idea, or am I just seeing it on your Facebook page?
It was kind of, I think there were a couple of people, we all had the same idea. It came about after we were at Jack Idden, who was a longtime photographer, his funeral. And it was like, this is the only time we're seeing each other, is at, wakes and funerals.
Yeah.
And so Dave Cuddy, who was the photo editor, and Dave now he works for the New Bedford Light. He said, we got to do something about this. And I said, I agree. So it just really, and then it got to the point where you're like, okay, we're either just going to do this or not do it. So that was in 2022.
Okay.
And so that was the first one. And we had intended to have one in 2023, but that was the year that it rained like every single weekend. It was a horrible thing. And so there was just, and then there was a resurgence of COVID that, September, October. So we just said, heck. But we had another one last year. First one we had about 80. You should come because you're an alum.
I always figure I get in very late, so I don't.
No, we've got people from all different, ages, generations, backgrounds, part-time, full-time. And the first one we had like 85 people. The second one we had 65. A lot of people wanted to come, but this last year was a little earlier. It was the end of August. So this year is September 6th. So put the date on your calendar.
September 6th.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And it must be just nice to have everybody together, and I'm sure the stories are amazing.
It's fun, and everybody just has a good time, and the people, there's some that have, young kids, and I'm fortunate to have an above-ground pool so the kids can go splash around and, to their heart's desire. But we've had, people, the younger workers in their 30s, some of whom are still there. Lori Lose, who does an amazing job on sports. I mean, she's just.
I've often said, and I don't know how, because you were laid off, so you can comment. I feel that Lori Lose, Lee, and Peter Pereira keep that place together.
Lori is amazing. She's a very close friend of mine, too. And Peter, I have all the respect for. Another friend of mine who I worked closely with for a number of years is Matt Ferreira.
Okay.
And, he's great. But the people that are there, in fact, I posted something on Facebook the other day. At the end of this, we were working, the Fall River Herald News building was sold, so they moved into the Standard Times newsroom with us. So we worked together for, I think, the better part of a year and everything. So I got to know a lot of those people. And Linda Murphy, who's the editor of the Standard Times now, and her partner Colin Furs, who's another excellent photographer and all in Fall River. Dan Medeiros, who's done an amazing job for covering that terrible fire over there.
Right.
And these people it's really a skeleton staff, but whether it's Lori in sports or Matt on education or Peter taking photos and people like Dan and Christina Fonts in Fall River, they just do an amazing job against the odds. Yeah. And they have that passion for it.
Thank you so much for being with us. Time has flown by.
Oh, wow. We're done?
Yep, we're done. Sue Pawlak Seaman, who still keeps up with the news and tracks the news on Facebook and posts things for us. Great to see you again.
Great to see you, Pete.
Right. Quickly, if you know of someone you think we should have on a future show, you can let me know. You can message me on Facebook. I'm also on X. You can find me at Pete Braley, or it's thepetebraleyshow@gmail.com. As always, we leave you with a thought for the day, and our thought today is, it won't happen overnight, but if you quit, it won't happen at all. So keep going. Don't quit. No matter what, as we always say, go out today or tomorrow and make it a great day.